lost in New York. It's your village boy. You're around. Thank you. So, yeah, they just came into like the new ones. I know it's cooking. Which one you're going to wear where, but I won't get into that. What happened? They didn't call you before? Stopwatch.
Is it 11 or 11:30?
Pass it down, I'll give it to you. Where's the gavel? Hello. Did you unpack your luggage today? paper?
No, I'll use something. Good. Why don't you lead us? What's your name? Vincent. Vincent Xavier. You lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, representing your class. Clerk, call the roll, please. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. The first order of business, I just wanted to announce that we are pleased to announce there will be a ceremonial signing of the agreement we hope to approve here tonight with Capelli Enterprises for the waterfront development at 11:30 at Harbor Square with to follow refreshments to be served at the Chatham Yacht Club, also on the riverfront.
No, here's the vote to the club.
Vote to the club? Oh, I apologize. Vote to the club. So,
And that is open to the public.
everybody is welcome. This coming Thursday. Okay. Also wanted to take the opportunity, I see a lot of folks dressed in green. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It's almost, we have a few hours to go. I see 2, 3, maybe 4. In any event, village managers, would please give us your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to defer our report to the last item of the agenda.
Chief Burton?
I'll be close to 2 weeks.
Oh, very good.
We'll defer.
Okay. We'll move right into village board resolutions. Approval of the minutes of the March 2nd, 1999 regular meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Approval of the minutes of February 23rd, 1999 special meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstaining, I was not present in the meeting. Item A3, approval of the minutes of March 8th, 1999 special meeting.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
He wasn't here, that was the meeting I chaired, and that was the extension of the agreement to the Capelli. The extension of signing the Capelli agreement contract, 30-day extension.
March 8th was published in the Citizen Register. It was a meeting also to discuss the purchase of real estate. No, it was an executive session. But we still have to announce it ahead of time and appear in the press. Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Voucher detail, resolved the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the voucher detail dated March 16, 1998 in the amount of $10,575.51 for budget year 1998, $99,701.30 for budget year 1999, for a total of $110,276.92. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item C, DPW bid award materials and supplies 1999 year. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby awards the bid for materials and supplies for 1999 in accordance with the attached recommendations from the Department of Public Works. Copy of DPW contract awards are attached to the official minutes. Items circled represent recommendations.
Second.
Any questions from the board? We went over these at our work session, and I asked the manager the question: is there anything remarkable, anything here that you would Item D, fire department removal, Cataract Hose Company. Resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Oxton hereby removes the names of the following from the active role of the Oxton Volunteer Fire Department, Cataract Hose Company. Each of these firefighters have moved out of Oxton and have been made honorary life members of Cataract Hose Company as of March 1st, 1999. William Lynn, 18 Iroquois Road, Bernard Andrews, and Richard Andrews.
So moved.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item G, waterfront development agreement. What's the whole, skip the page.
We got E.
Finance budget modification, 1998 year-end budget. Resolve the Board of Trustees of the Village of Oxton. Whoops, somebody just leaned against this one. There you go.
Thank you.
No problem. Happy all the time. Authorize the modification, adjustments, and amendments of the 1998 revenue and expenditures account for all funds of the Village of Oxton. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. Mr. Chu, would you like to give a brief explanation of this?
This is an annual process that we have with the auditors. As you know, we're in the audit right now. The auditors do make adjustments with the parameters for the year-end close. And it's a routine that we've had through past years with the reporting of the year-end past. If you have further questions, we have a closure with it.
It's a yearly procedure, am I correct?
Yeah.
The last time 1998 budget was modified, and whether the money was taken out of it tonight, I mean, you can't do these two resolutions.
I probably couldn't say so for sure, but I would say that there's a 95% chance that's the case, yes.
So this is best storage, Benny Fields and
Benny
storage.
Fields, yes, there
Do
are.
we have state auditors here yet?
The state auditors only come every so often. I don't believe they're coming this year. Mr. Cunha, do we know we're going to be audited? They came several, about 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item F, DPW sewer agreement IBM, whereas pursuant to the agreement dated as of March 6, 1984, the 1984 agreement, IBM was granted permission by the village to modify and use wastewater conveyance facilities, the village WCF, in the village, and whereas IBM completed modification of the village WCF in compliance with the 1984 agreement, and whereas it was the intent of the village and IBM that the village WCF would serve the IBM Thomas J. Washington Research Center in Yorktown, the Yorktown parcel, and also Hudson Hills Research Laboratory proposed to be constructed by IBM on a 194-acre tract between Pine Ridge Road and Croton Dam Road, the Hudson Hills parcel. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to certify and approve the findings of the environmental impact statement, and it is further resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to enter into and execute an amendment of the 1984 IBM sewer agreement, a copy of which is annexed here to and made a part hereof, redefining the service areas to include 12 subdivided lots as shown on the map annexed here to as Exhibit A. And that's the end of the
So moved.
Is there a second? Any questions from the board? Any?
You're not Thomas More.
No, I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. Before we have any questions, Mr. Chu, would you like to get, or Mr. Barnes, whichever?
Mr. Barnes did a thorough review of this. The time was right for restructuring the agreement. The restructuring puts the village in a much better situation to control the infrastructure and reflects the conditions that exist today as opposed to those that existed over a decade ago. If you'd like a technical explanation, I'll applications that were handed out to the public, the golf course property is not included in the service area. So if the county wished to connect to the sewer system, they would have to obtain our approval to do it, and we would charge them for adding additional sewage to our system in the event that we were able to handle the additional cost.
Okay, I just want one, because, the part of the sewer system is the county sewer system, and so I just wonder.
Well, this is our sewer system. What IBM did was IBM constructed a sewer line all along Huntington Road, from the Watson Center all the way down to the old Hutchinson Golf Course, and down through the town and connecting into the village system. Okay, so it's actually a separate private sewer line, really, which connects into the village system. And IBM has negotiated with Newcastle and with the town of Austin to take over their particular share of the service of the line that goes through their areas, but nobody else can connect. Okay, without the prior approval of the village of Austin, because we are the ultimate, we are the end of the line.
Okay, so really nobody can find part of that agreement to use as a subcontractor agreement.
They can't get into the system unless you let them.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay. Item G. Waterfront Development Agreement, Capelli Enterprises. Whereas, the Village of Ossining has heretofore adopted certain criteria and objectives for the redevelopment of the village waterfront, which are set forth in the Village of Ossining zoning law adopted in December 1990, the Ossining Local Waterfront Revitalization Plan adopted July 1991, the Chadbourne Report dated September 1994, commonly referred collectively to as Waterfront Development Plan. And whereas, in furtherance thereof, the village board issued a request for proposals for the development of certain parcels located in the waterfront development area, and whereas, after considering several proposals which were submitted to the village in response to the RFP, the Board of Trustees selected Capelli Enterprises, Inc., a New York corporation, with offices and places of business at 115 Stevens Avenue, Valhalla, New York, as its preferred developer. And whereas the village and Capelli have negotiated an agreement for the development of the waterfront area, hereinafter referred to as the development agreement, which provides for the development of 3 parcels of land consisting of and containing 216 residential housing units, dedicated public space, parking, and 20,000 square feet of retail space on parcel A, a 3-story parking structure containing approximately 640 surface parking spaces, a 60 to 80 unit residence inn, and 4,000 square feet of retail space on parcel B, and 104 units of residential housing, parking, and a public park on parcel C, substantially as shown on a preliminary site development plan prepared for Capelli Enterprises by Chung and Partners as revised March 10, 1999. And whereas the proposed development agreement provides for, among other things, a minimum of 544 railroad commuter parking spaces in the development area, and whereas the proposed development of the aforesaid waterfront parcel is subject to a full and complete environmental assessment review in accordance with the State Environmental Review Act, and a final site plan approval by the Village of Ossining in accordance with the zoning law, and whereas the Board of Trustees has reviewed the proposed development agreement and determined that the development of the waterfront area in accordance therewith is in the best interest of the Village of Ossining and its residents. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and the village manager are hereby authorized to enter into and execute a development agreement with Capelli Enterprises, Inc., for the development of the designated waterfront development area in accordance with the preliminary site development plan prepared for Capelli Enterprises, Inc., as revised March 10, 1999. And it is further resolved that a fully executed copy of aforesaid development agreement be annexed to this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Before I turn the meeting back to all the commissioners, you and to Mike Darren, I would like to just say I feel that we're about to do here tonight is the culmination not just of recent plans and recent, certainly exhaustive studies and looking into what we wanted to do with the waterfront, but it goes back many years of preparation, as almost was alluded to.
So much for preparation.
In the motion, goes back to previous administrations where the groundwork has been laid, where studies were done, where homework has been done over a period of years, where the previous administration had conducted a series of focus meetings, where we had come down to an RFP that was participated, had wide public participation. And I think when you see the final maps and the final drawings, you will see that it's very similar, first of all, it's very similar to the RFP, hopefully. It's also similar to the original plan that Mr. Capelli, and it takes some of the elements of some of the other developers, perhaps, or some other ideas that were given in at the meetings that we had at the community center. You're going to recognize this is not going to be a strange plan, a new plan. Certainly, it takes into consideration the feelings and the desires of people, again, that participated over the last decade in this process. I think that the work that has been done by Mr. Capelli in meeting some of the questions and comments that were made by members of the public during this process and by the village board itself and by certainly make this plan a good starting point. And remember, as we move forward, it's more than a starting point. Certainly, it's a contractual thing that we've worked to, but during the CEQA process, there will be opportunities to work and make changes. If problems come up, obviously changes will have to be made. There will also be an approval process that goes through, which will have some cooperation from the planning board with, as well as the village board itself, which will have wide public participation. This certainly, while a culmination of a lot of work done by a lot of people for a lot of years, is, and it's more than a beginning, it is really reaching a tremendous plateau. The village of Ossining is looking forward to a renaissance of its waterfront. We have taken great pains to protect the waterfront for public use. We have taken great pains to have a mixed-use development, all of which the people of Ossining told us this is what we wanted. And I think that when the smoke settles from this 2, 3, 4 years from now, when it is in place, that the net gain for the taxpayers of Ossining will be substantial. That the cost, obviously there are costs to be borne, but as you will see in the development agreement, which we made available at noon tomorrow, somebody said, because there may be some final change that has to be made. And so the copies will be available. But when you look at that, you will see that the net cost of the taxpayers of the actual construction of this is going to be very, very minimal. It almost rests entirely with what we have to do to replace the highway garage on Water Street. So, in any event, we certainly, with this development, are taking a major step forward for the village. And I think probably the highlight of the whole thing is the downtown Ossining waterfront plan. Downtown Ossining. There's a great synergism with the Ossining's downtown. The developer has more than captured that spirit, in that he has acquired, as you know, the Bank at the Clock. He's working with us on other projects, and he has shown that with his plan, as you will see, that there is a connection with the downtown, and there is a synergism between the riverfront and the downtown. Certainly, I've served on this board for going on 15 years, and never have I cast a vote that was so important to the future of this village. I think that in years to come, we will look back on this day, and we'll look back on the people who helped us lay the foundations for this, not just this board, but previous boards and administrations going back 15, 20 years even. That we'll be very proud of what we come up with, and that I know there'll be folks who will have criticism to make. That's what makes the world go round. We certainly expect people to come forward with criticism. What I ask you to do, remember, Ossining had the boat, the train, excuse me, the train is leaving the station. We've had this happen many times before. and for one reason or another, we never seem to get out of the station. Part of that has been because of, we've never seemed to able to come to any agreement as to what to do. Certainly, I don't think there's any major opposition to this plan so far. And if people have opposition, wonderful. All I ask is that everybody count to 10. Make sure you ask the questions, look at what you're saying, look at the criticism you're making. If you feel that it's great, go forward with it. That's what makes the world go round. But I ask everyone, for the future of this village, to count to 10. Whether it be in the political arena, the private arena, whatever arena, and look at what you are saying, making sure what you're saying is accurate, and then obviously feel free, and obviously you're going to anyway, we're not trying to stifle debate. We are asking people to do it. Ossining is at a crossroads, okay? The biggest crossroads perhaps in its history, in many years since they put the prison in. And we need to move forward together. I think the process, you can always make changes and how you proceed, but I think so far, looking back at how this got started and how it came forward, and the participation, I think if you look at what other communities have done in this area, that we have done much more than most people do in this area. Certainly the negotiating of a private agreement is a very tricky business. It cannot be conducted by 22,000 people. You elect these 5 people. The people up here do represent this village day process, okay? That's what we're elected to do. We are elected to take the facts as we see them, listen to the public, listen to our experts, and make a decision. I can say that I speak for this board. Our consciences are not only clear, but we look forward with great anticipation to the future of our village. Having said that, I would like to turn it over now to Mr. Chu and Mr. Zarin to make some explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think we should use a microphone for this stuff. Pull one off this end and one off that end if you need to, but
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the professional staff and all the folks who have put so much time into this project, community groups, many individuals in the community, we'd like to thank you for your leadership with this particular project because it's so important. There are 3 parts that we would like to present to you and to the people here this evening, and they're fairly straightforward. The first is a pictorial overview. The second is a point-by-point discussion of the substance of the development agreement, and the third is an open session for questions and answers. If that's an agreeable format with you, we would like to proceed in that manner. There is one thing, if I could, Mr. Mayor, before I introduce Mr. Zarin and Mr. Barnes, that I would like to do if you don't mind. Let me just call on Vincent here, since we have young folks with us. And Gretchen Hansen. Gretchen, if you wouldn't mind, in your lap is something I think is important to Vincent's education. And if you hold that up, please. This is the original waterfront redevelopment plan, dated December of 1973 in this community. Village board, many people in the community continuing to work on this, have been working toward what you are seeing as students this evening. So in your efforts in government, perhaps the one thing that you can remember in governance is that sometimes good things don't happen fast. So, Mr. Mayor, with that, if I may yield the floor to Michael Zarin, and Michael will begin the 3-part presentation. Thank you.
Mike is wrecking the building.
Mike is running the place now. I just want to, I think, emphasize, we thank everybody. I think
Brian, you okay? We'll take you to the hospital if you need it.
certainly
This is just to get your attention back.
those that serve on our development task force and who are working on this project, Mr. Chu, Mr. Zarin, Mr. Barnes, Mr. Costa, all the members of the staff, essentially, and we're certainly grateful for all the time and energy that they have put forth in this process. Are you ready, Michael?
I don't think those were frustrated with much.
Oh, yeah.
I have a quick question, that's a little
I can negotiate agreements, but I can't
Good evening. I take it students here at Ossining High School. I have very fond memories of Ossining High School. My son 2 years ago scored 31 points against Ossining, but you won, so don't worry about it. It was his 5-scoring game. We're from John Jay. For my next act. All right. We spent a fairly long, protracted period in some intensive negotiations to come up with a 25-page single-space development agreement that sets forth the parameters of the project based on the input we received from the public, based on the RFP process, based on 20 years of waterfront planning, and essentially this plan, conceptual plan before you, is what will begin the public review and secret process, or like we would like to say, recommence the public process. As you know, there were numerous hearings, numerous sessions such as these where we solicited input. Now we're going to come back to the public with comments and do a full environmental review of this project and deal with it and change it as necessary based on public review. However, we do have a development agreement that sets forth the parameters, and perhaps I could take you through some of the main elements of the project, the main elements of the development agreement that have been negotiated. This project is divided into 3 parcels. Parcel C is where the present DPW site is. Parcel B is the area around the train platform, and Parcel A is the waterfront. And Parcel A is made up of now, for any of you that might know, this was the old Maui Oil Company property in this area. Then there was the Dan Zeisen property. Well, let me just back up. We received the Maui property as a gift from Mrs. Mary Maui, approximately almost six years ago, I think. Excuse me? Thank you.
93.
Anybody, there's one? Feel free to chime in. Then we received the Dan Zeisen property. We started condemnation, but we started eminent domain, but we reached the consensual agreement and purchased the Dan Zeisen property. And now we are in discussions with Flavor Science and about to file eminent domain proceedings if we are unable to reach consensual agreement with Flavor Science. Those are the 3 parcels on Parcel A. Essentially, there will be a mixed use on Parcel A. You have approximately 214 residential units in 3 buildings over here. Now, originally those buildings, and if you remember some of the prior proposals, they came across this way, and then there was some buildings blocking here, and some of the proposals were even on this side of the train track. Through negotiations, and this is probably about the 3rd generation conceptual site plan, the board asked, based on a lot of public comment that we received, to push back the building as much to the side so it would open the view and open the expanse in this area. And all this area in here will be public common area. There will be, the way it's built out now, public mall, built-in steps where you can sit coming down to the river, a bandstand, a promenade through here, a public park in here. And you would enter through a public ramp coming here and have a full view to the river. You would also, if you're on the train platform, be able to see and have a full view to the river. We also negotiated retail, approximately 20,000 square foot of retail under the building, which was negotiated, as well as a restaurant, a 10,000 square foot restaurant. Now, in the development agreement, we were very specific about the types of retail uses. And this was, I think, a topic that was raised repeatedly during the public hearing. These uses will be the types of uses that draw people down to the waterfront. And that's the type of restaurants, food, bicycles, waterfront related, gift shops. What we didn't want is the type of retail uses that would only serve the residential properties here, such as dry cleaners and alike. One of the primary objectives for the entire planning of the project was to bring people down to the waterfront, open this middle area up, have food, outdoor food areas around here, have a lot of traffic coming through and spending time on the waterfront. Should also mention the ferry that'll be coming from Haverstraw is almost completed now, and that will generate a significant amount of traffic coming in and out to the train platform and the like. There's a building in this corner, approximately I think about 5,000 square feet or so, that is going to remain, and we hope to be the use of that building will be really open to full public discussion. The board has not decided how to use that building, whether we want to make it theater, whether we want to tie it into a type of tourism with respect to the Sing Sing and the prison tourist attraction, and that really is an open issue, and I think the board is looking for some exciting ideas about how to use that building. It is a rather significant size. It acts as a gate to this part of the project. There'll also be a promenade and public walkway along the Kilbrook here that'll connect into the park. There was a desire on the part of the board to push the parking that's on the site to and back of these buildings as much up against this area, and the feeling was also that that is the less marketable area because of the views of the oil tanks and the like. That's parcel A. Parcel B is the parking garage. The parking garage will be approximately 640 spaces. It will be built by Capelli fully in consultation with MTA and with the village board's engineer approving all specs for the garage. The garage will be built, I'm sorry we don't have the pictures here, that when you look at it, it won't look like a garage. It will have brick facades, or it will have an appearance of a building, an office building, or a type of retail center. And in fact, there'll be 4,000 square feet of retail on the bottom level of the garage. And the purpose for that was that we wanted to draw people. When people are coming down this area, we wanted to draw them towards the waterfront. And I know there's been a lot of discussion among people about what about the view? What about the view of the waterfront? Well, when you come down this hill, when you're about at this point in the hill, regardless of what's built here, you're not going to see what's going on because of the drop in grade. So you're really only going to see the retail and this garage, and the purpose is to try to pull and attract people down to the waterfront. What we hope is when you're up here, you'll see the landscape of the water, and there won't be anything to block it, at least on the site. There will be a 60 to 80 room Marriott Residence Inn or an equivalent on top of the garage in approximately this part. So this garage is going to be an active retail and public area, and is not going to have the sort of stereotypical parking garage and be solely used for that purpose. As you come up onto parcel C, you will have approximately 114 units. You'll have 16 townhouses along Main Street, which is very difficult engineering. Many of you know there's a pretty steep slope down that way, but what we wanted was nice houses. These houses will all be ownership and sale. So when people come down Main Street, there'll be a nice segue down into the waterfront, and then you'll have another number of apartments and units in this area. 50% sales, 50%, I'm sorry, these will be sales or rental. There's no mandatory amount of sales. 50% of the units on parcel A have got to be sales. And there's some arrangements that are be made in the event that they're unable to sell it, and that the interest rates are high, and they reduce the price of these after a number of periods. We will allow them to convert them to rental with very strict criteria. However, even if they're converted to rental, they still have to put a provision to buy in it, and when their rental expires, they have to try to sell them again. And we have specific provisions in the development agreement providing for that. The purchase price of the property is going to be the price of the garage, which will be turned over to the village for $1. And that's important, and I'll explain something later in the development agreement about how that works. $1 million in addition to the parking garage, $250,000 for a downtown improvement fund that's going to be administered by the village, representatives of the developer and representatives of the village. The first $200,000 for any remediation that might occur on the property, and also the applicant will be paying all our expenses, all our legal or our environmental. We will have a whole team of environmental engineers working for the village that are monitoring and doing our own independent reviews of all the work that the developer is doing. The affordable housing. 10% of all housing units on A will be affordable, and 20% on C, using the county median income level. And they will be affordable for at least 25 years. And for anybody that has ever been involved in designating affordable housing, that's a relatively substantial amount where there are no government subsidies. There's not going to be any governmental assistance for these housing. For example, there are units in another village that the developer is building. It's much less, and they're only going to necessarily be affordable for 5 years. Ours are going to be for 25 years and distributed between 10% on A and 20% on C. The hiring program, there will be a hiring first program, Ossining First hiring program for all jobs with respect to the project site, as well as provisions so that the developer complies with the county minority participation program. And when we develop the land disposition agreement, which is the largest, thicker conveyance document at the end of the day, those provisions will be flushed out in detail to assure strict compliance with those. So that is a real hiring program for Ossining and reflects the diversity in the Ossining community. Let me talk a little bit more about the parking, because that's a critical issue. The project, at a minimum, will have 100 more parking spaces, commuter railroad parking spaces, than are available today. There are approximately 444 commuter parking spaces on the project site today. There will be at least, and there will probably be more than 544 parking spaces available for commuter parking in the garage alone. All the parking along, or a significant percentage of the parking along Westerly Road, will be for public parking for people using the waterfront. And that's another critical element to the project. You have a lot of waterfront projects such as these that do not have adequate access to the water. Here we're going to have more than adequate parking so that people who want to use the waterfront have easy access, have somewhere to park, and are going to be able to use the waterfront. Let me mention something about the parking garage and the way that works. We are talking with the developer about possibly building the garage first, prior to the full approvals on the entire project. The reason being is that it would take over 18 months to build the garage, and if we wait until the entire project is approved, it's going to significantly slow down the time in which we can build A, because most of the interim parking would be on parcel A while we're building the garage. If the garage, as I mentioned before, Upon the completion of the construction of the garage, under any circumstances, it will be turned over to the village for $1. The developer will never operate the garage. It will be turned over to the village, who will operate it, or transfer it to a designee to operate, or work with the MTA to operate it. Nevertheless, it will be controlled. The vast majority will be reserved for Ossining residents, village and town residents, and alike. However, if the garage is built first and something happens on parcel A, what do I mean by something happens? We had long negotiations over this. A new board is elected and, for example, they just pull the plug on the project. They just decide we don't want it anymore after the developer invested tens of thousands of dollars in the engineering, which they have already done. There has been testing, tremendous amount of engineering on the project already, designing, planning, legal expenses, our legal expenses. If you recall, they provided the village with $25,000 escrow fund that's paid for all the village's administrative work to date. But let's say somewhere down the line, the village just pulls the plug, or there's a significant reduction in the number of units here that makes it economically non-feasible for the applicant. If, in that instance, the village is acting in bad faith, then what we will do, we will have the garage, assuming the garage is already built for $1, we will have a brand new, beautiful, spec'd out garage without the hotel, with the retail, that will have a vast improvement of the parking situation for the village. We would then purchase the garage from the developer for the lesser of $4.5 million or its actual out-of-pocket expenses. Now, just so you go through it, garage spaces typically cost, and I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but I think they're relevant, $10,000 to $12,000 per space. That is the minimum construction cost for any garage pretty much in Westchester. That means that is a $6.5, $7 million garage. Now, granted, one of the advantages to the developer in this case is this developer builds garages, so we can build it for less. But the village would be getting, at market value, a $7 million garage on any fair market value for the lesser of the most $4.5 million to be paid over 5 years, with the developer having no interest in any of the properties that we're talking about. Now, remember, that is if the village at the end of the time acts in bad faith. If they not act in bad faith, we get a garage for $1. Why don't I go through, and then I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. The application, 30 days after the development agreement is signed, the developer will submit an environmental assessment form, and that will commence the secret process. For any of you that don't know, the secret process will immediately start with a scope of review, a scope of work. That means we will have a public hearing. You will get to look at a draft scope of work for all the issues you want the village board and the developer to study as part of this project. And there will be public hearings, and you'll get an opportunity to say, this is what we'd like to study. Then there'll be a draft environmental impact statement that will flush out all these issues. You'll get to comment on that. The board will get to comment. Then there will be a final environmental impact statement, and the public will again get to comment on that. And then the project will have to go through a number of other approvals, many of which the public will also get, and you will get a chance to comment on further. So this is truly the beginning of the environmental review and the public review process. This is the document that the village board is putting forward conceptually with business terms we think that work, that starts the process. I should mention there's also a penalty letter of credit. 7 days after the development agreement is signed, the developer will provide us with a $150,000 letter of credit. If the developer should just pick up and leave, we will be $150,000 in the kitty, although I don't think anybody would like to see that happen. Finally, I should mention the environmental issues. At this juncture, if any of you recall, Maui was a spill site. It was cleaned up when we took it, and we received DEC approval. The bus terminal is a site that was also had minor petroleum spills. That's been being cleaned up by the Laidlaw, the bus company that used to be on it. We're reserving $100,000 to do any further cleaning if necessary. Flavor Science, we're not aware of what the conditions are at that site, although we have some estimates or some idea of what it might be. The way the environmental will work is the first $200,000, if there's any cleanup, will be done by the developer on the site. We have $100,000 of, as I said before, the Dan Zeisen money from the purchase. So the first $300,000, if there is cleanup, and that's a fairly substantial cleanup for petroleum, which might be on the site. We have no reason to believe that there's anything else. The village has no liability. However, if it goes over $300,000, the village will accept the next $400,000 of liability up to $700,000. If it goes above $700,000, the village can say, look, we would rather not have this development. It's costing too much unless you, developer, would like to put in more money. Quite frankly, as a practical matter, it's $300,000 of cleanup before it gets to us. That's a significant amount of money. And if it does come to us, there's a brownfields. There is millions of dollars of available state brownfields monies that we're getting calls every day from the DEC with respect to whether municipalities will be interested in. It has strings attached. It's not the ideal money, but if necessary, that money would be available. Also, so you should know, we have not given any releases to the Laidlaw company when we purchased the property from Dan Zeisen. We've not given any releases to Dan Zeisen. We won't give any releases to Flavor Science. So there are other available private parties in the event that we need to seek additional dollars for cleanup, if that should exist. That is a broad outline of the terms of the deal. I can tell you, just from my experiences, for whatever it's worth, and I'm involved in a number of municipalities throughout the county. I represent a number of municipalities. I work and I'm involved and I'm aware of other projects. This is a unique project. There's no governmental money going into it, no tax rebates, no tax incentives. It has so far, there's been a extremely productive and fairly in the relative to other projects, fast-forward negotiations. Ossining is truly in a position to have the first project of this kind, waterfront development, in the ground faster than any other municipality along the Hudson River and Westchester. And the agreement as it stands today is really a win-win for the village. It's very little, if any, out-of-pocket expenses to the village. It's a maximizing the use of their land to create what will hopefully be a very vibrant public, residential, and commercial use throughout the area, as well as enhance and improve the parking. So this is the beginning. It truly is the beginning of the process. You're going to get numerous opportunities to evaluate it, to comment upon it. Every issue I mentioned is going to be probably 50 pages of a chapter of an environmental impact statement, flushing out everything that I said with pictures, with numbers, with analysis, with technical analysis. We, the village, will have our own team put together. We will have our own engineers. We will have our own environmental people. We will have our own planning people to independently review anything that we get from the developer, as well as a board who I can tell you has been extremely meticulous in the scrutinization of this. This board truly, when we've had plenty of meetings, some of them you have mentioned, what were these meetings for, executive session? We were talking substance, we were talking the deal, very little politics, very little meaningless discussion. There's been hardcore substantive discussion throughout the negotiation process. So with that said, I'm sorry if I was a little,
Mike, before you wrap it up, just two items I'd like you to touch on very briefly. The LADA, what that represents. And also, as you mentioned, we are, before, on answer to a question, we are just now finalizing our taking of the flavor science project. Could you comment on the relativity of that to this agreement?
okay, let me start with the LDA. The LDA is a euphemism for a land disposition agreement. We spent considerable amount of time negotiating the development agreement. We thought it was important before we went forward. We had the parameters of the business deal pretty much intact. However, the LDA will be a substantially expanded document that will even further flush out all the issues that I mentioned, including default provisions, different acquisition, and serve as the conveyance document for the property. At the end of the secret process, at the end of the environmental review, at the end of the approval process, we will have a conveyance document where we will either convey this property under a long-term lease or sell it to them outright as a fee simple. That will be the land disposition agreement, and it will take the development agreement and expand it even further, and you will have an opportunity to see the land disposition agreement. It will be negotiated simultaneous and throughout the secret process, and many of the issues that are raised during the secret process are going to find their way into the final land disposition agreement. And that will be, as I mentioned, a substantially expanded agreement. With respect to flavor science, we have already formally commenced, as you know, eminent domain proceedings. We have also made repeated good faith attempts to reach a consensual agreement to purchase the flavor science outright. And we have, at this juncture, tried to reach an agreement with them. If we are unable to reach an agreement, and we will continue, then there's a very uniform procedure in the court. We file a map, we make our offer. If they don't accept our offer, we have to pay them the amount of our offer, and then the Court of Claims will take their appraisal. They'll take their appraisal, and the Court of Claims will grant them the highest value for the highest and best use of the property. And it will be a trial, and they will get what the court considers the market value, highest and best use for the property. It's a process that's used not all over the county, but all over the country. And if we're unable to reach an agreement, that's what we will do. We will continue throughout, as we do in most projects, to continue to negotiate, to continue to reach what we think is an equitable agreement. We've shared with them our appraisals. We've seen their appraisals. You know what? We're not that far apart. When you look at it, we're probably a couple of $100,000 apart, but they're not ready to accept our offer, and we'll try to come to an agreement. What happens, however, is we will get title to the property. We will have to pay a certain relocation expense, and then we will negotiate in court. And it's a fairly common practice. There are pretty strict requirements, legal requirements, and in the end, the developer or Flavor Science will get their highest and best use and fair market value for the property, and the judge will decide that.
Okay, I would ask you to come forward to ask your questions so that the folks at home can see. This microphone is for the television. We are on live TV, so we're being taped and future shown. So please come forward, state your name and address, and feel free to ask any questions. Mr. Depot.
Sorry for climbing over everybody. Does the 5-minute rule apply tonight? No?
That's a good portion of the meeting.
Good, thank you. A few things. One, I'd like to ask some questions. The contract, the agreement, wasn't available as of the end of the business day today. And in fact, you said it's still maybe changed.
No, I don't think there's any changes in there as we go on.
Okay.
Are you available when, noon tomorrow, that when we agreed on?
I recognize that when you're negotiating a deal, you can't have 22,000 voices involved in that. However, once you've arrived at a deal that you want to sign, what is the reasoning behind denying the public an opportunity to review it and taking input from the public before you agree to sign it and schedule a ceremony?
Well, I think that the process that we've developed throughout the whole from the beginning has been with the RFP. We had a public process where people were commenting and made comments on it. And at this point now, as Mr. Zarin described, we will be beginning a much wider process, which will take probably the better part of the year to finish. So we feel that that gives everybody plenty of opportunity in itself to comment on the environmental aspects of it. As you see, many people who participated in the initial conferences that we've had, with several, many of the items that were raised at those meetings have been incorporated in this, in the plan and in the agreement. So there will be plenty of opportunity for people to look at it, read it, comment on it, and also, as Mr. heard, that's why I asked him the question at the end, the land disposition agreement, which is a far more the finalization, the end of the whole day, if you use crazy use, when the I's will be dotted, the T's will be crossed, things will be changed, you can rest assured on it. Some items that may, in this agreement may have to be changed because of problems that crop up during the construction or whatever, or even the approval process. So that I think the process up to that point has been widely open to the public, and it will be continually open to the public in the future.
Okay, we tried to have a discussion for a few months about the nature of the ownership and operation of the parking garage, and obviously you weren't in a position to have the discussions because you were negotiating. I'd like to know now, from what I heard from Mr. Zarin before, for example, the village is going to take title to the garage for $1. From reading the fact sheet that was handed out a few minutes into the meeting, it appears that there's going to be a 50-50 share of the income from the operation of the parking garage. I have a couple of questions. First, is the garage going to be...
I didn't see it in there.
It says, the first $1 million to Capelli, and the balance split with the village on governmental funds, sorry. Can I ask you a question first? Is this going to be, since the village will hold title to this, is this going to be on the tax rolls? No. It'll be public property. Okay, so, and the income from the parking will go to whom? All of it? Are the villages going to operate it, or they're going to hire management?
It's obvious that some part of it is here at the MTA because they already have some interest, obviously.
The thing that makes me a little antsy about it, given this particular developer's track record with parking structures at Westchester Medical and Westchester Airport.
We won't be operating on it.
Okay.
That is a implicit provision. As soon as that garage is completed, and we notice it and certificate of completion, it's turned over to the village for $1. The village will decide in their sole discretion what's in the best interest of the village of Austin, and then they will decide.
Okay, so this,
Kelly will have, the developer will have no future role in the operation of the garage, unless the village goes behind. It has nothing, no contractual responsibilities or rights with respect to the garage.
all right.
And obviously this has been a point because of the celebrity nature of the whole process that you mentioned concerning other locations. However, if you examine that beyond the headlines, you will sides to that story.
Yeah, I understand. There's more than two sides. If you consider the composition of the county board at the time it was done and such.
We were very concerned about that, and I don't want to use the word paranoid, but we were
Good
very,
one.
wasn't make my word. We were very concerned about the parking aspect of it, and I think that we have done a pretty good job of tying that down.
Okay, in terms of the Hudson Valley Greenway, the state's plan for the development of the Hudson River as a natural resource, does the moving ahead with this project, doesn't that kind of foreclose some of our options in terms of the Greenway? If we're going to develop 310 units of condominium and maybe a hotel with Marriott or someone else and a parking structure at the riverfront on a good chunk of a 10-acre parcel with half of it or better, doesn't that foreclose, since it's right in the middle of our whatever greenway we have at the moment, doesn't that kind of compromise our ability to participate in that? And in fact, I assume that you've already reviewed to see if it's legal, but
We have submitted the plan starting 2-3 years ago. The Greenway River Keeper to many of the environmental organizations that we know are involved with protecting the river and concerns about waterfront development. And to date, they've been fairly supportive. In fact, there's an uninterrupted, as you know, Greenway right along the whole waterfront, specifically developed for that purpose. So that if you look at the project, starting from the north to the south, it's all green or all
north being,
public dedicated parkland.
I can't see from here that well. What's
actual
the northernmost point?
Northern parkland.
Oh, that's
The
the
actual
north.
waterfront, on one end of the property that we taking to the other end is either a park, which is a typical park, which is going to be a side park, and or a trailway, what we call Esplanade, bigger than a trailway, that runs the full length of the property to the river.
From this property, in other words, from the Danziza property south to the sewage treatment plant, that's the greenway,
Well,
right?
we're concerned mainly with our part of it, but yes.
Well,
it does
understood.
exist, correct.
Right. Okay, so just one more
And
question.
there's there may be some
Two more.
exciting things we can do on the waterfront, even with existing property, where we're concerned
Oh,
with
yeah.
completing that trail.
One thing would be to take all the property up to Salazzo's and turn it all into a park. The separate treatment of the parking garage that you're doing basically to facilitate the development of the other sites. That also, given the whole thing around the parking structure, makes me a little uneasy. It's possible that the parking structure will be developed, and then if you find some substantial remediation needs to be done that makes the project not viable, we have a parking structure there and nothing else, and it's an open question about how the parking structure is going to be managed, and it won't be on the tax rolls.
No, theoretically, or under the agreement, if that occurs, we've got a parking garage for $1.
Right, or maybe not, depending on how the court settles, it's good faith or bad faith.
But let me, we have written the agreement, instructed, so under your scenario, John, we have a parking garage for $1.
Okay, all right, so,
And we were very careful with respect to that, and that was a critical issue. If we can accommodate and build it separately, as you described, we built in protections for the village, we went to great extent.
I'm sure you did.
And remember, as Mike pointed out during his presentation, that if that were to happen, the village would still own the land. And while there may be a problem, say, with parcel, whatever, of that whole thing, there may still be available, we may still be able to go out to another RFP.
to do something else,
to do something
understood.
else.
So, last question.
Unfortunately, I hope that doesn't happen.
The worst case scenario, find out that Maui is contaminated and the remediation costs go up to our $750,000 limit, or maybe more, because when they start digging, we're on the hook for that stuff. Okay, but say it's just a $750,000 cap. So we're getting $1 million, okay, but we're losing $750,000.
So our liability is done. Our liability is $400,000. The first $200,000.
Oh, Okay, so 400 of the charge. All right, so we have $1 million, we lose $400,000. Well, all right, maybe we don't. We get the $1 million at the signing of this, or, okay.
No, not this.
Oh, the deed and such, yeah, okay, the LDA and the deed and all that.
Upon the conveyance of the property.
Okay, so suppose we lose the 400,000, we have 600,000, we have a parking structure for $1, and we have 200,000 that goes into the downtown business fund. 250,000, where of course it would be kind of self-serving because Mr. Capelli's buying properties up there too. Hopefully he'll benefit from it along with everybody else. Yeah, that's all right. No, that's.
There are two other things that will also be. A, we have not foreclosed on our ability to go to the former owners and law or equity.
Except for Maui.
Except for Maui.
Right.
Maui we own that one. And the other two parcels in question, also at that point, Darren also pointed out, there is brownfield money
Right.
available, so that we may or may not have to bought for the former sale.
Right, which would also be available if you develop the whole site as a park
That would
too,
be the
right?
back. Pardon?
That would also be available if you developed it as a park or some other municipal use.
But John, you can't, the only thing about, for example, the old Maui property, and that is our property, village-owned property.
Right.
Whatever cleanup we had to do there.
We're stuck with that. I mean, I should have.
Our
Right.
liability, our unqualified liability.
We decided we wanted it before, and then that. Yeah, right. So, and now we may be paying the price.
So it's nice, it's not nice,
You get shared some income there.
$300,000 out of it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be distributed to any property, it could be a few thousand that we can use to the site.
Right.
Let me mention another thing, all the testing that's gonna go out on the site, is not going to be, deducted from that $300,000. And it's been involved in the testing of the major.
Right. You said remediation, not testing for the actual
Exactly.
remediation.
So
Right.
many times, the testing expenses were the major element of remediation.
Right.
Remediation in this instance might be the removal of dirt.
Right.
It'd be all those lab tests, the borings and the like that really add up to tremendous expense.
And that's.
Those are all the developers expense because it's part of their due diligence process.
Okay. Very last question, the public hearings for the secret process, to the extent that the village is, it's a village hearing, so is there going to be a 5-minute rule that applies there?
Normally, if it's something like that, we don't, the public hearing, we can't. Have the
Public hearings don't apply.
It's only for public comment portion of these meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Yeah, oh, yeah. Sir?
I'm Bill Cowan, and I am not speaking for IFTA this evening. I have only one question to ask. As a retired businessman, I used to spend a lot of time doing what ifs. What if such and such happens? What if something else happens? And the person I'm negotiating with, what's he looking to get out of it, or what's she looking to get out of it? And my question is a very simple one. I know that I commend the board for its due diligence on the, it's given a lot of care and a lot of thought to this, and you've been concerned about the cost to the village itself. But has anyone given any thought to the worst case scenario and the best case scenario for Capelli? What's the best case, what does Capelli get out of this in the best case, and what does he get out of it in the worst case?
Well, I certainly looked at it from the village's point of view. I can answer that question rather quickly, but in terms of the worst case scenario, we get Mr. DeBardinis' idea to come to park. The worst case scenario being that the whole thing falls through and there's problems, then the village of Austin has invested a substantial amount of money and we end up paying for and potentially maintaining the Rosemont Park, which is not the end of the world. That's the worst case scenario.
The worst case for whom?
For the village.
I'm saying, what's the worst case and best case for Capelli?
For the
I think I know what it is for the village.
And I'm gonna get to the developers too. For the best case scenario for the village of Austin is that the thing gets built, and everything goes substantially as planned. There's gonna be obviously changes in this as we move along, but things will happen and things will be discovered and whatever happens. And at the end of the day, we have a viable project that everybody's happy with and proud of. that there is a net tax gain for the taxpayer, a substantial tax relief based on the amount invested in this project when it's successful, and that we preserve the waterfront. I think Capelli, worst case scenario is, for some reason it doesn't work, and he loses his investment, that he's some of the investment he put in, on the parking lot, and on other things, and all the time and energy, and the dollars that he's given us up front, the dollars that we've heard all the way along the way, been adding him up this way, a substantial amount of money. He loses most
Which
of that.
he should be getting some payback on somewhere down the road.
Well, he gets the payback is that he develops these things and runs them or sells them and makes a profit out of it.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Has anybody done
How many dollars was
any
it?
estimated numbers on that?
No, we haven't asked for performers, we might with respect to, going into the development agreement. We have not asked, for this base. We've had an interesting, we have had an opportunity with the whole RFP process gave us a benchmark for what is the sort of fair market value of the land. Because we received bids from a number of other developers for what they would pay for the land, as part of the purchase price. The going rate, quote unquote, was between $4.5 million. Those were the other two developers, what they were essentially offering us. It appears from what we've negotiated, we will get substantially more than that under this agreement. If you value the garage at fair market, it's a $6 million value, but let's not even take it, let's do it from the bottom, at almost $7,000 a space, it's a $4.5 million investment, with an additional $1 million in hard cash, paying off expenses, $200,000 for the remediation, $250,000 for the seed fund. We will be netting at the end or receiving, grossing probably close to almost $7 to $8 million in value from Capelli, as opposed to what we were receiving, we were being offered was between 4 and 4.5.
But Capelli isn't in this for his own good, or even for the good of Austin. He's in it for a profit. Yeah. All I'm asking here is, has anyone thought about,
He's also in it for a long-term profit and negotiate with other communities. As I've said before,
quite possibly,
we're the first community on the river from Yonkers to Poughkeepsie to West Point to have real development take place, the potentiality of it. Capelli being the first one to do it, successfully working with the municipality, it makes his position in other communities much more viable
understood?
when they see what he's done and how well he does it. And that's why that's the advantage of being number one.
Okay, but my point here is only that it helps to see, it's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street, and if the developer has to get something out of it, and he will get something out of it, I'm sure, or he won't go through with it. And all I'm saying is it sometimes helps to do the numbers on the projections, the worst case and the best case. You can't do much more than that in ballpark numbers on something like this, but it helps to do that, to know where you stand and how far you can go in the negotiations. I gather nobody has done that kind of a projection, so as Mike said.
We looked at it, we did do some appraisal, on originally, with, we did go through some internal projections and looking at some of the numbers. So we did have a sense of, including with our appraisal, what the property was worth.
Okay.
What we didn't do, and you're right about it, we didn't look at what his pro forma projected profits was.
Do you plan to at any point?
We need to discuss, I have to tell you, my experience in doing this is to get
Yeah.
documents.
Okay.
One meaningful,
We're all concerned to get numbers that are.
The further out you push them, the fuzzier they get. Yeah.
It's very fun. We get some really economic analysis.
and actually, the actual offers to the developers certainly give you some insight into what they thought, what people in reality tangibly thought cost was gonna be, you know, certainly give you some reflection if Paul said the county helped us with that with a model. But it's always a guesstimate, it's not really yeah,
We have only one waterfront, that's why I raised the question.
absolutely. Yes.
Linda Mangano, Ellis Place. Mr. Mayor, you said during your speech before, you said that there were other deals in the works with Capelli. Could you be more specific?
I just had a deal that there were other things that we were looking at.
No, your exact words, I think, were other deals in the works with Capelli. Could you give me some idea? I mean, you said you're working other jobs with him for Osling. Could you give the public some idea?
I said he was looking at other, I said he is. He's looking at other buildings in the village, on the waterfront and also in downtown.
No, I'm just following through what you had said, that the village is working with other deals with Capelli, and I was curious what they were. In the planning stage, you said, I think.
There's no deal, other deals with Capelli. We're going out, as you know, with an open RFP for the riverfront, the property, burned out property. There are someone else purchased the county custody, as you know, wasn't Mr. Capelli.
I'm just concerned, just interested in, not
The
concerned.
gallery up at the other end is certainly available.
So speaking with Capelli with regard to the burned out properties on Main Street is one.
I did not say that. I said that we're going out for an RFP, which, with the ADA and APO helped us.
All right, so then I must have misunderstood when you said other deals and works with Capelli. I made a mistake when I heard you say that before. Possible. I'll listen to it on Friday night.
I did not, if I said that, I didn't mean deals. I meant that there are other things that he is looking into.
Oh, okay, that takes care of that. Mike Zarin mentioned before about parking on Westerly Road would be available. Westerly Road is one street, there's only parking on one side. And there's parking there right now, so that's nothing new and different as far as I know. And how many spaces are on Westerly Road?
Somewhere between parking over 160 from the whole length of Westerly Road, which will now become available for our use. We need to work out exactly how we want to use it, what times we want to use it, but that is not at this time identified by residential use or commuter parking. So there's going to be a substantial number of those spots that are going to be available for evenings and weekends.
150 spots are available on Westerly Road?
All along Westerly Road.
I must be missing something.
I think Linda, I'll be happy to go over the parking plan. We have
Do you have a little picture of that one that I could take home with me?
picture?
Smaller one. No more sports. No, a little picture of that side right there.
No, but I'll be very happy to go. We've done.
But you said 150 spots on Westerly.
I think that pretty much estimated if you go from the whole length of Westerly Road, there'll be about 150 spots now.
Okay.
That are not designated for commuter or residential at this time.
Okay.
Just to answer the question, to elucidate further on that. As far as I understand it, most or all of the parking on the west side of the tracks that will become for the development, not for commuter parking. True or false?
None of those spots along Westerly Road.
Or on the west side of the tracks.
West side or, yes.
Unless MTA has become part of
All the west side parking
What do you think?
is not designated for either commuter or for residential. Now that could, as we go through the approval process, people might say, look, we'd like to see more commuter parking, but we want to make sure there's sufficient parking there for public use of the waterfront. And we're going to listen, we're going to recount, we're going to listen to input, and we're going to come up with what is a sufficient amount of maximized commuter parking with sufficient for public use.
I read the Capelli report cover to cover and read every document I get my hands on, and all I come out with excluding this evening, is 106 parking spots for people who visit the waterfront. Is that true?
That's not the number I've been working with, but,
What number have you been working with?
I just told you, I think it's approximately together and decide how to make the maximum use and whether that's gonna be sufficient. If it's not sufficient, then we're gonna have to come
All
up
right,
with
I go back again to the question, 106 spots from what I remember from what I've read. That excludes Westerly Road. I don't know anything about that until this evening. At 106 spots, that's for people who visit the waterfront park during the day, and also the parking for all the shops, which are 20,000 square feet, if I remember. That can accommodate a lot of shops and stores there. So all we've got is 106 spots for public use. Public use, people going to the waterfront. That's that's why I'm asking you, is my number wrong?
I believe that the number is wrong.
Totally. I answered that second answer.
Give me a number.
I
What's the number?
just gave you three numbers 3 times. You don't like the number, you don't want the number, and I said that I'm not sure about it. I said, you know what?
Okay, you're not sure.
I will call you tomorrow with the exact number.
Can I
Okay.
What time would you want me to call it?
Just hold on 1 second.
923-4947, anytime after 4 a.m.
Is it,
401.
She's serious.
Anytime, but I might be out checking parking tickets if that happens.
What's the number?
923-4947.
is it true to say that,
I'll give you the exact number tomorrow.
Mr. Zarin, excuse me,
Thank
is it
you.
true to say that there is enough parking on the development itself to cover the people who are going to live there?
Yes.
Okay. Right. And then, if everyone can visualize in their mind, I know the answer, in their mind's eye, all of the parking, it is now on the west side of the track. All the parking is on the west side of the track. They're not in it at all. Every one of those parking places is going to be available for either going to the waterfront, all the way down to.
Reverend Sidemore got a ticket to go to the waterfront.
All those spaces are going to be available for the commercial use or the waterfront.
Okay, next question.
I wish we had known the number of those, but we don't.
Next question. I heard about, Mike Zarin talked about hiring, that they'd be hiring local people. Will the Village of Austin be using the bulletin boards here and outside Marie Pusey's office and the various bulletin boards around town to make it known what positions are available for Capelli, for working on this
That might be a
project?
very good way to do it.
You're gonna have an opportunity on
You-
all these issues, we're going to finish and then we'll go on. You're gonna have an opportunity throughout this process to help formulate the answers to these questions with us. We are at the absolute beginning of this process. So those types of issues, I mean, we're gonna be looking for your input
Sir,
for that. I'm
sir,
just saying it's a little premature.
I
It's legitimate
disagree
and
with
it's
you.
reasonable.
I respectfully say, Mike, you are the one who brought up that we would be hiring people they would be hiring people from Austin. So I'm not being premature, because if I am, I'm just following your lead, sir.
No, because what
So it's not premature.
I added to that was, and if you recall, specifically on that, I said with the development of the LPA, we will be flushing out that issue specifically to make sure that there are very strict procedures for that, so that we have full compliance, as well as during the secret
I'll
process.
take my notes Friday.
But that is a
Okay.
very interesting idea, way to do it, and certainly we should consider. Thank you.
And while you're doing the bulletin board, you still have your Christmas bulletin board outside. Okay, Mike Zarin spoke about steps. He used the word steps. Now, I'm going to assume, which I really shouldn't, I'd like to, will this entire project be handicap accessible? With
The answer
ADA, the
is
American with
yes,
Disabilities
it has
Act.
to be.
Excuse me?
It has to be. By law.
It will be, I'm sorry, broken record, but as we engineer it, we are going to do what we need to do legally, and we're gonna work with people with respect to that issue. We haven't gotten to that detail yet.
I'm only asking because you said steps. My questions, Mike, are only taking off on what you talked about.
I think it's legitimate, I'm just saying you're speaking the answers that are way ahead, but I think that's a legitimate, as your other issues.
I must be really interested in talking. I got my number 106 down here twice. Okay, next thing.
Don't like that,
I don't believe you. I don't, no, I'm sorry. I'm not calling you a liar. I apologize. I'm saying, you gotta show me where. I've gotta be proven with a document. Maui property. Mike, you said, here's on my note now, that the property, and there was no cleanup, and roughly on January 15th thereafter, there was an article that Jerry Fiella said, the ex-manager, that it's all cleaned up, everything's hunky-dory. I've been researching, and I can't find anything that says it's a closed site. I think it's still an active site.
I will provide you with the document, the closure letter to the DEC,
And also, Lindy,
It's called a closure letter?
called an inactive site.
also the substantial amount of fill that's put in there, what do you call it, capping?
Yeah.
Substantial amount of capping that was done on that property also.
I mean, I was pulling up all the DEC stuff and EPA stuff the other day, and I did find, for Ossining, 37 Aqueduct Street, when the Ossining Village received $25,000 for that cleanup. The chemical cleanup at 37 Aqueduct, remember that, Mr. Mayor? But I could find nothing on Maui. I don't have a fax machine, I can't work it.
He knows.
All right. No. I'm personally excited about this. I want this to go forward. I'm taking Ernest's word, and everybody can do is go forward, go forward. We take one forward step and two backward steps. What irks me the most, and I'll be outspoken on this again, the village of Ossining is stealing Joyce and Roger Kiley's property at Flavor Sciences. Mike Zarin said, I quote, we gave them many offers, unquote, quote, couple of $100,000 apart. Could you please be specific what properties are offered the Kileys over at Flavor Sciences?
What property did you say?
Aside from 7 North Water Street, that's a sewer. That was a sewer exchange.
As I told you last time, Linda, the sewer has been removed from that property, is now that little trailer or lift station is now been moved off that property. It's not,
No, it's
No
the
longer-
one in the property is sealed. It hasn't been removed yet. It's still in the building. Now you have the trailer for,
it is no longer active.
I know, but the sewer is still there,
The sewer is
in the
not.
basement.
The remnant of the former, I don't know, in fact, I don't know the answer to that question.
But I know, I follow that
Some of
property
the
all the
pipes,
time.
may still be in the ground, and the well
Yes,
may
it
still
is,
be
sir.
there, but it's a dead-end well, it now goes somewhere else.
Right, I know
You
that.
did that on
But
purpose.
the apparatus is still there because with the sewer gone, it's valued at, with the sewer there, it's valued at $234,000 was appraised value. With the sewer gone, the value of the property is well over $300,000. So the sewer, whatever the apparatus is called, is still there. But that's what I understand. I've spoken to the Kileys on the phone, and the only property the village is ever kind enough to, forgive my sarcasm, offer them, and this is a company who makes flavors for food additives, for foods and whatever, we offered them a sewer. And also I understand that they've been paying taxes on $800,000 assessed value. Now they've been paying their taxes based on assessed value of $800,000. Why did you, is your highest offer
What is your house
$300,000?
assessment? Can I ask you that? That is a personal question. What is your house assessment?
Go to the assessors and find out, huh?
Roughly, let's say it's assessed $50,000, $60,000, $80,000, what is your assessment?
Go to the assessor's office.
Well, the point I'm making is, and anyone here can answer the same question, what is your house assessment? And what relationship does that assessment have with what you could sell your house for?
10% is his ballpark figure.
Well,
10%
again,
is
okay,
ballpark.
what we're saying is, also, look at what we did, what was the final figure we paid Mr. Dan Zeisen? 770, was it?
748.
Okay, and somebody's appraisal, I believe, for the other property, which is half the size, was $800,000, you know? So, and you have to assume, not in this particular case, that when two people sit down to negotiate, that there's many numbers that come in back and forth across the table. You know, I mean, that's just the way things happen. I'm not saying it happens here. Obviously, we can't discuss that. But there was obviously...
Why not? It's all public
because
record.
No,
If
it's not a matter of
court,
public record. We
if
cannot
it's going to
discuss
court, if the papers have been filed, it will be public record.
There was also when you go to court and you're finally doing the deed, and are trying, unfortunately, believe me, this board agonized over this for many, you know,
I know
those
that.
are very difficult
I
things to do.
realize that.
And at the point now that we are beginning a litigation, certainly when you figure, you use what you're
You
afraid,
lowball.
okay, thank you, that you would do. Well, and as Mr.
Then that's not
hold
good
it,
faith
hold it,
offering.
and as Mr. Zarin accurately pointed out, there will be many months, but any lawyer here will tell you, even after we take possession of the property, we'll go back into court, probably 2, 3, 6 months, year, 2 years, 3 years, God forbid. We'll already have the property in hand. He will already have the dollars in hand that we offered, which is 300, whatever it was.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, okay.
What is the top
Okay,
figure the
hold it.
village offers?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm just saying,
As
if you look.
legal counsel,
Yeah.
that we do not
Mhm.
any further discuss what are very sensitive negotiations.
If-
I'm not discussing our
Mr.
negotiations.
Conley,
Other than
that this client, or the third attorney, is very ably represented, and I think it's inappropriate for us to public discuss
Okay.
this type of
I
matter.
understand, and you did very well by making him
Right, and
cut
I'm
your
not
slip.
discussing this particular
Very
case.
good, very good.
Thank
If
you
I
both.
was sitting there,
Thank
I
you.
would've.
Thank you.
What did I say wrong? We know that. I don't have my mustache on. What did I say so wrong, Tom? Why'd you gavel me for, Tom?
I wasn't gabbling you, it was Gavin Colby.
Oh. Mike Darren, you gavelled also? Did I understand that? You gavelled your own lawyer. Did I understand that correctly? Okay, Mike, please do the
What I
same vote.
said was, it is public knowledge, that the fact that our assessment is 350, I have not discussed anything in particular about this property. I'm only talking about a process. And it's unreasonable for you or anyone else to say that, to not understand that when these things happen, there is a negotiating process. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, let me finish my discussion about flavor sciences then. From what I understand, the village's highest offer was $300,000. Now, at this point, with the way you smashed your gavel, he shut you up, so you're shutting him up? I mean, you look pretty foolish. I don't have to make you look foolish.
Thank you very much.
But the thing is this,
That's one.
that's one what?
Thank you very much.
That's one what? You did it to yourself, you provoked yourself. I have said nothing disrespectful to you or Mr. Zarin. You go crazy with that little hammer you got. It's not fair. I don't mean to upset you so much as I want to upset you, you know, again. End of that one. All I was asking is, if the village board is not in fact hiding anything, and if all of you are in fact as open as you're telling everybody here, then you would clearly tell the public, at this point, what is the top figure you offered the Kylie?
I would defer to counsel. That's it. I think,
You're good. No, here's the rule, here's the 5-minute rule, you're allowed to talk, he gave you the floor.
Mr. Zarin, explain that, answer that question.
I'm sorry?
I guess Mr. Zarin.
He just said, yes, Mrs. Aaron answered the question. I just want to know the top figure.
I think it's inappropriate.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm happy with this project. I don't think you're being above board and open with the public on everything. You failed to take into consideration the number of children who will be living there once the condominiums and everything is rented out. That it will increase the school, the population in the school. It'll increase traffic. It'll increase the amount of garbage that has to be picked up. So we'll need more sanitation engineers, we'll need more police officers. We'll need more building inspectors. You fail to take into consideration anything in the future, what it will in fact cost us. The bottom line figure. But the worst of it all is you're trying to promote businesses and you're throwing out the Kylie, and that's deplorable. How would you feel, Eugene Napolitano, if they came over, the village came to you and said, we want your house on Donald Lane, we're widening the road. How would you feel? Trustee Roberts, how would you feel if they did this for your house on Everett? How would you feel? Eagle Bay knows, that's a private
You wanna
community.
pay me enough, they can have it.
How would you feel
Simple.
on Browning Drive? I don't think any of you would be very happy. You failed to also tell the public the hundreds of thousands of dollars that the Kylies have spent trying to fight you. You have deep pockets. That's Tom Barnes. You have a never-ending deep pocket. You're stealing from the residents, and if it was done to the Kylies, I tell everybody here, it can be done to all of you one day.
That is
Don't
absolutely
forget
not
it.
true.
Thank you.
It's absolutely untrue. In fact, there were proposals by two of the contractors and their recommendation or their request, their wish list, was eminent domain, and they were both rejected strongly by this board, and to the point where one of the contractors rescinded it in writing with an apology.
If you knew how upset the community was.
As far as eminent domain goes.
No intent.
Okay.
This board has no intent.
He's still talking. No, the thing
This
is
board has no intent of threatening anybody's property, nor does it want to. This board also has no intent of holding up this project because we can't come to terms.
basically it's a good project. But the thing is this, with eminent domain,
The project doesn't happen without that parking.
it can. You could build another thing and give them another, offer them another parcel. The village has at least 300 parcels on the tax rolls. I have a printout. I'll give it to you. Give the Kylie someplace decent. Show good faith to the public. Do something. Just don't throw them out. This is deplorable. Last thing I want to say with regard to eminent domain, Mike Zarin, you're working on a job in New Rochelle. And also, Capelli is working on a job in New Rochelle, and Capelli's idea was to take by eminent domain 3 blocks of New Rochelle, including Planned Parenthood. So, Capelli is doing the village's auctioning job, and we have Mike Zarin. Capelli wants to take over 3 blocks of New Rochelle and get rid of Planned Parenthood and all the buildings that are there. And Mike Zarin is also working on that one. Am I correct?
I represent New Rochelle, but you don't even know when New Rochelle's position is.
I
You can't even.
I don't know what time it is in Alaska, but it's not my problem.
Remember, then you should raise, somehow there's a connection, and you know that the city of New Rochelle wants to, eminent
There
domain.
is a newspaper article, it's out today on it. And your name is in it, and Capelli's name is in it.
I realize what you're saying, Robert, I'm saying you don't know the position, and I'm not gonna
It's
debate it.
similar.
No, it's not similar.
It's similar. I'm talking only eminent domain.
Mr. Napolitano ably stated that there will be no further eminent domain than what is in process now by
Then
this
why
board.
is it already on the blueprints now that it's taken over a number of parcels?
Mr. Napolitano, well, try it one more time. Mr. Napolitano, he said it rather ably. This village board will authorize no further eminent domain. Since we've discussed it, yeah. If anybody wants to disagree, please.
Leslie Flosser. I have a few questions. First of all, will all the parcels be fully assessed and taxed for the entire time of the process?
Yes, all the prior.
And parcel C is also part tax exempt.
When will they go on the tax roll? And when they're sold to the developer, they will go on the tax roll? Okay. Would that include the parts that are considered public?
Any type of a park, property that's dedicated as a public park will be taxed. There are public areas within the private realm, that people will be able to use, the retail area, along the development, that's all going to be public access to private realm. So there's a difference between publicly accessible property and publicly dedicated parkland, which would be tax exempt, and public buildings which contain operations of the village would be tax exempt.
The area in the garage that will be given to the village will be bought by the village for $1.
The garage would be tax exempt.
The retail property on that.
That portion of it will be taxed.
The areas here that are dedicated to public access, would there be any public park land in this property?
Public parkland is the tip of what is the Dyson property there, which is the furthest part to the west, the round part, that's going to be a public park.
front of the developer's parcel will be, he will own and pay taxes. So we will, I think I could say pretty safely, we will own the upside. If not now,
How wide will that be? What are we talking
The
about?
question that you're asking is, essentially what you're asking for the eastern bound of western private versus public.
Yes.
And that'll be laid out during the whole LDA and be an exhibit to the LDA as part of the deed and conveyance. So has not been determined as of now the exact dimension.
Well, approximately? I'm trying to see how much, I'll just tell you in my opinion, we should be trying to buy the land on the waterfront away from private owners, not sell it to them. To me, this is a completely backward process we're going through now. We finally have an opportunity to get the land that really is truly valuable for all the people who live in Ossining, and we seem to be selling it to several people who actually don't live in Ossining, but presumably will move into Ossining to take advantage of the lovely property that we're going to lose. I'm trying to see how much of this property will still be available to the public and on what terms. That's my question.
I don't think we're going to be exactly bound.
No, I understand, but the approximate.
As you can see,
You can take a look at the map and you can get approximate calculations based on the scale of the map.
I think about 4 acres, approximately thereabouts, remain public space. There's also another part I see that runs all along Kilbrook that could be developed as part.
3.5 or
3.5.
But the width of the area that comes down,
No,
I mean, it's
I
like
don't know why we're being indefinite. There is the public park,
Yeah.
which is on the tip of the old, the Geising property, where the buses are now parked. That will forever remain a public park, forever. If I have anything to say about it, so will the escrow. There may be some reason why we want them to own it, but certainly as they point out, they'll probably maintain it. The escrow, which is a narrow, very narrow strip that runs along the waterfront.
That's what I fear. That's exactly what I'm
And the
trying to
pier
bring
itself.
out.
That
Very
way-
narrow strip.
Right. Also, as Mr. Zarin pointed out, the open land where you see there's a performance area and that stuff there, that I think is definite, perhaps, but I believe that the developer will own it, but it's an open space, it's quite a large open space, where just like the people, there might be a parking lot in front of a development.
What is
People traverse on, but it's a public space, but the developer will own it and maintain it. So it'll be larger than just the strip in the park. It's
what
all
is
the open area.
It's about 100 feet width right in here. So that's about 100 plus feet right along the here.
Is there a difference in rights of access and use that people have if it were a public property as opposed to if it's private property that's available to the public, and what you're saying?
No, we were very specific about that in the agreement, that all delineated public space, whether dedicated park or just delineated public space, will be available to the public either through easement, with non-park dedicated space, or just to the fact that the park dedicated. So, those types of issues are going to be covered in the conveyance documents that we're going to do at the easement and other legal documents, that those will be absolutely open and available to the public. And we've also negotiated right in the development agreement that the village will control the uses of that property, that we're not turning over control of those public spaces to the developer, and they can be used as a public area, a public park, under reasonable rules and regulations that govern any public space.
And remember also that as we move forward with this project, all of you're saying, we've been through and around and discussed for many years, should this become an entire public park, should it be a mixed-use development? Essentially, what has been come down through all of that process for many years is that the people of Ossining, yes, we want to have access to the river, but we also cannot afford taxpayers in this community to give the entire waterfront. We want to remember Emerald Park is there, maintain it, and there are dollars available, and frankly, as I mentioned earlier, both the park and the Esplanade are totally already paid for. We already have the grant in hand for that public grant. So, I don't know, I think you make a point. I think we're over that hump. We've made that decision as a village, and not just this board, previous boards, and as a community. I think I think the people of Ossining guided us in the right direction, which is a mixed-use development, where there is access to the public, where there is some businesses that will be there, and some housing, which includes some affordable housing. And I think that the mixed use is something, again, that process, we're over that hump, Doctor. I can only tell you that. And certainly at this point we're at, the mixed use development is where we are right now. I can understand what you're saying. It would be nice if we could make the whole riverfront, an entire park. But Ossing's main problem, as you know, is tax base. And we're a very poor community, and when it comes to that, the tax base anyway. And we certainly needed to use part of this property to make Ossining affordable for the people who live here.
Well, you could take all the property on the west side of the railroad track for the park. But in any case, since we're talking about the taxes, what actually what do you think the impact of this construction will be on the schools?
Well, we've sat in this chamber and argued over every different condominium proposal that came through here. Everybody said, "Oh my God, it's going to be 100 kids, 2 per unit," and whatever it was. And if you examine all of the condominium units in Ossining, and in the apartment house units also, truly the apartment house units, not cooperative, you will see that there are not a large number of children in those buildings, and that the study that was done and some of the figures that we use from the school board, while they look good on paper and they are accurate in some respects, when you actually look at Eagle Bay or Hudson Point or any of our condominium projects, and they've been there now for quite a long time, you can count the number of children in those developments on one hand in many cases. I think that some of the exaggerates. Obviously, there will be municipal costs to this, but I think we're not going to need 8 or 10 policemen, 1 or 2 perhaps. We're not going to need in fact the refuse, the larger containers that could go to the private sector for refuse collection. I think a lot of there'll be some cost, there's no doubt about it, against the tax revenue. But I think with that cost, if you examine it prudently, as we have looked at it, it's not going to be a large expense. The infrastructure, as you've heard, the philosophy come through here, we're trying to get the developer to maintain as much of the property as possible so that it doesn't come back to the taxpayer. When it comes to what we will receive, I hate to throw out numbers, but we're looking at, we're told by the estimates that we're given $1 million to the village and more than that to the school district. So, and some of that will be eaten away by
property values for some, and will also increase rents and lead to a kind of gentrification of the areas around Main Street. So I wonder if the village has given any thought, or the village board has given any thought to the long-term impact of that development, of this development on rents, and whether we could even agree that we wish to preserve in some sense the racial and economic diversity of the village by means of taking certain measures that may preclude a kind of gentrification, a total gentrification of this area. I know that, and I thank you very much. The only time I ever mentioned Mr. Mayor was when I said something about affordable housing in this development, and I see that, as Leslie has said, there's 90% non-affordable housing, but at least there is 10% affordable housing.
No, seriously, that is not true. There is 10%.
No, I didn't mean to be coy about it.
No, there's 10% affordable housing on parcel A.
No, I understand, and 20%, no.
on parcel
That's a big accomplishment to get from the developer standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't cost the developer a dime because it comes from the federal government through HUD tax abatement.
No.
HUD then subsidizes in some fashion? So it's going to cost Capelli something. That's odd because when I was at the bid meeting where they all presented their projects, I went up to the guy who was representing Capelli and I said, well, what about affordable housing via these? He says, oh, we can write it off on our taxes and our corporate profits in some fashion.
There may be tax incentives that are offered under the Internal Revenue Code.
Right.
But there's not going to be any.
He said it was revenue neutral.
There's not federal money coming in here.
There's not going to be any federal grant money or.
Okay. He said it was revenue neutral to Capelli Enterprise. He did not want to do that.
About having affordable units and the numbers that we wanted. So, it's not a wash for them.
Okay.
We put the numbers and percentages up one time that they wanted.
Okay, excuse my misinformation then, from the day I was there watching those projects being presented. But also this raises, of course, a much larger question of the impact on the, who knows, possibly 8,000 people who live west of Highway 9, which is, everybody knows, the cheapest place to live in Austin. I wonder if the village has given any thought to the impact on those people who live in that area. Obviously, there will be a positive impact, perhaps, in terms of local jobs. But there may be a very negative impact in terms of rents and property values for renters. So I wonder, this is not so much a question that you can answer with a number. It is a very, very big question for this village and its nature in the next 10 years. Because if you succeed with this development, if we succeed, then our success will be built probably by, subtly, by the market evicting a goodly number of people in this village. Do you wish that to happen? If you do not wish it to happen, I wonder what the village can do about it, or what you could give me any thoughts about that. That's all I have.
I think it's a very thoughtful question. I think that aside, of course, from the affordable component, that we certainly need to look at what effect that will have on the community. I don't agree that all of it has what you described. Took a lot of the average income. The census tract that just lies there, you look at very disproportionately low income. A lot of the other census tracts are balanced, some moderate, some, this census tract that is going in is a low income, the lowest income census tract in the village. And we are, in some respects, averaging out the effect of the census tract, which has its good effects and its bad effects. Certainly we're going to have to take a look at how that will affect. We don't have rent control in Austin. The county has CCPA, which we have to low use. We do have a voluntary group that helps control rent and has been successful with the larger structures in Austin, but not as successful in the 6 to 10 unit type development. So because CCPA doesn't regulate that, it starts at either 10 or whatever it's at. So certainly we need to look at what effect that will have and try to take steps to be sure that we're not doing a major gentrification.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know.
I'm going to go back up. I have a question. I have a comment on that. Perhaps the board can be proactive about it. I actually was going to ask, on the worst case scenario, this development will probably be built in, let's assume it is built. What do you think the time schedule is on it? Possibly, assuming that, for example, that the later sciences thing drags on in the course, which is good. I think it should be quick. How's that going to be done?
The way eminent domain works is you obtain title rather expeditiously, and then you fight in the court about any difference in value.
Okay, what, Mr. Mayor, do you think realistically we'll have all these structures in place?
I would say 2 to 4 years.
4 years from completion of all the documents.
And we have a lot of time to try to think about these issues, and I don't know what the measures would be, but I think that the measures ought to be more, they're not just measures that want to kind of crank out of the village board. And they're not really a piece of legislation. They involve community discussions which should take place now before it's too late. Because it seems to me, I've noticed that there's a number of real estate transactions on Main Street already seems to have taken a obviously you're tough to be a skeptic. Environmental impact statements have their purposes. However, the other question is, in addition to environmental impact statements, we need political participation, democratic participation in deciding exactly what's going to happen to these groups amongst the groups themselves. Thus, an environmental impact statement is fine, but it cannot substitute for a frank discussion about this issue in other public forums.
What it does, Fred,
I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be... I mean, it's fine, I'm not
the
against
issue you're
environmental
raising,
impact
the issue you're raising is obviously a large, serious, profound issue that, you know, it goes beyond just a project. But the only reason I brought up about the DEIS with respect to this project, is it does add to the vehicle to look at those issues and talk about it. So,
Fine, whatever it's worth. I'll keep on being here. I'll keep on pestering you after this, I guess.
Please, I don't know if we're gonna, don't cut the camera if you know what we're doing with it.
No, let's leave the camera going, you're not insured to operate it.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Where did you be out in the hall, or did you go home? Yes.
Oh, yeah. I'm still glad that this project is, continuing. And I just wondered that, with the affordable houses, I don't know, who's gonna say what is affordable, but it's in the agreement, so I have to take, what you can out of it. And, also, this project is, it used to be a article in the paper, that Route 9, one side of Route 9 is, was it was I guess, if you live one side of Route 9, you was okay. If you were, other side that you were in the poverty line, and it was some negative tests a few years ago, and so I hope that we'll be including with some of this development coming in, because when a developer, we want to, go along with it. We don't want it left out, and I hope that the village and doing this contracting that a lot of my municipal government do have when the development come in there, and they with the impact on recreation, impact on a certain social activity that with parcel that the development sometimes provide a upfront money, provide a like a maybe a park, provide a swimming pool, like something that you are bringing additional people in the community, and that way it's also we have been here longer, and we did so when you come in, you would inherit you would entitled to the same service, but since you since a developer come in with a high income and moderate income, that the impact with the current resident we don't have to subsidize, and so I'm glad that we will be included in all three parts of the season, and others suggest that the public needs to be included. So I don't want to be left out. Thank you.
I'm going to have to, hang on just 1 second, please. Thank you, sir. Mr. Napolitano has to go to work. What time is it to work?
Can you take another question, Mr. Islamo?
Okay. Yes, sir.
regard to the pool, why wouldn't they want to use the pool over here, Tom? Why would they have to build a pool? If they're gonna join the community, why wouldn't they want to use the pool over here?
Most of your condominium, or projects have a swimming pool right on top.
I guess it proves that a bigger pool can be built also.
As a matter of fact, you might be, well, we're working on something.
Yeah. I have a question. Isn't it against public policy to transfer to sell parkland? And wouldn't all the riverfront property that you're dealing with here be considered parkland, and throw into the mix the fact that it's the Hudson River, and it's once it's gone, like the gentleman said about once the parking lot's there, it's there.
Yeah,
The only area that's designated as parkland is typically a building license property. No other part of it is designated as parkland. Except perhaps a small strip along the side of the
Who determines that, the DEC? All right, well, in other words, each village has the latitude to decide what's parkland? Okay, and the state or the feds don't come into the mix, even though even though it's contiguous to the Hudson River. All right. Shouldn't the removal and the consequent relocation of the school buses be considered as an environmental impact regarding the proposal?
No, I don't believe it is, because I think it's happening, this has happened even before we are actually starting any construction or turning any land over to anybody. This is something that's been going on since 1992, at the latest, earlier, actually, but 1992. I don't believe that this would be a requirement to do a separate environmental study to sell our land.
All right, even though we're...
I mean, not to sell our land.
Okay, follow up to that, even though where the buses are parked, I would imagine that area has become polluted. What with the stuff that comes out of the buses, etc. Isn't that property somewhat polluted?
Well, one of the reasons, one of the public purposes, we had a public hearing on public purposes of eminent domain like property where they're not conforming uses with waterfront development. Buses manufacturing absolutely right. I mean, bus companies were partly responsible for the contamination of their property. One of the reasons trying to remove what type of manufacturing and not conforming uses off the waterfront to make it more accessible to the public.
Right, but if the property is polluted and the buses are still there, you haven't really done enough of a study, have you, yet to determine how polluted that is?
There were very expensive studies on the damage to property before the village ever got involved. They were engaged in a deep cleanup for about 6 or 7 years. And then Laidlaw, which was the tenant before Bronzo, they did an extensive environmental investigation with all types of testing and review of all the tests that had been done previously with the groundwater and soil, and made submissions to the DEC with respect to closing it as a silt site. So there's been quite extensive testing on that site, probably more than and remediation for many, many years.
Right, but as it's continuing to be used, it's going to be continuing to be abused. As I brought up at the last meeting, which wasn't televised, I told you that Al Piro was indicted that night, I told you. And he is usually right there hand in hand with Mr. Capelli. In fact, Mr. Piro entertained about 12 judges often at Gregory's, paid for by Mr. Capelli. So it would not
surprise me if somewhere down the road, Mr. Capelli, let's say Mr. Capelli, the last time you didn't have an answer, I didn't think. Let's say Mr. Capelli gets indicted, okay, by the federalities. Is this project still going to go forward?
Well, I don't think the board wants to really speculate further. We should get beyond the other.
Well, the gentleman who was over here said that the Capelli gang referred to revenue neutral, the low-cost housing, and that comes, taxes come into play, and obviously that crowd doesn't always do the right thing in regard to taxes. If you're like me and you think that bilking the federal government out of $1 million, as Al Piro is accused of doing.
Mr. Bureau doesn't have anything to do with this.
No, but Mr. Piro is hand in hand with Mr. Capelli.
Not with Mr. Weldon, it has nothing to do with each other.
Well, they have more in common than they don't, and they
Not
use.
in Mr. Weldon.
No, well, not in Mr. Belvin, but I'm asking about Capelli. I'm just asking a question. If Capelli gets indicted, does this thing still go forward?
That's pure speculation and conjecture. Beyond what we can do.
Nah. In regard to the DEC approval of the Maui site, the DEC is the same organization under George Pataki and John Cahill that allowed the LaGuardia operation. They gave them approval before the Croton Village even gave approval. LaGuardia has subsequently been found by the state of
I just
Connecticut.
want to stress you, the disclosure, unfortunately, Mario Cuomo was still the governor at that point.
For what?
When we got the closure list, it was George Pataki and Mr. were not there yet.
For what, Croton?
No, I'm talking about Aspen.
Yeah, I'm talking about Croton.
I'm talking about Aspen. You mentioned.
No, LaGuardia is in Croton.
Right, I know, but you said that the DEC's operation regarding our closure letter, had to do with Pataki and whoever else. I'm just mentioning that Mario Cuomo was still governor. And that's
Right,
what they
but
can do.
okay, but the DEC, right, I got you. But the DEC now is being run by Cahill and Pataki. And LaGuardia was just found to have dumped over 200, he and Mr. Cardellini and some others have dumped over 200 some odd piles of asbestos contaminated material up in Hamden, Connecticut. And the state up there is a little more diligent regarding environmental corruption. So what I'm asking you is that, because there's a lot of us that like to go along the river, and it seems that this thing is going to preclude a lot of space that the general public, as Leslie Proctor brought up previously, the general public from using that property.
Actually, it's going to provide more access that they don't have now.
Well, access that they don't have now, but you got a whole, but you have an opportunity here to put a lot more of that property in the parkland category, and you've decided not to. And your argument is that you're going to get taxes for
The realm of things is to condemn everything from the Aspen Briarcliff border to the Croton border and make it a public park. Obviously, the taxpayers can't afford that.
Well,
So somebody has to make some judgment as to what we can afford at a particular time. And there may be further opportunities along the road for additional park development. Along the waterfront, if you were familiar with our zoning laws, you see that the zoning on the westerly side of the tract is what we're trying to conform all this property to now, and there may be some changes in the future. All of that is subject to speculation.
okay, but I mean, the answer to your, what you brought up, I'm not talking about condemning anything, but I think that when you have an opportunity to make stuff parkland, I think that Irvington put a large chunk of property that they got, made it a park.
A lot larger chunk to start with. Some of that they made private development.
Yeah, I understand. I
About
understand.
about a third of all of the property in the village right now is off the tax roll. The question really is what type of balance do you have to make between what's on the tax roll and what's dedicated to parking and what is off the tax roll.
Well, I mean, are you telling me that you want to have the religious organizations taxed? I agree with it. I agree with it, because Maryknoll and places like that have a lot of property. I think that the man that was here, that was the architect, I guess he's gone, made a good point, and I know this might sound a little off the subject, but I think it's the same thing, because you're discussing parking in regard to this development. The village of Ossining actually is where the borough parking lot is. You brought up Mr. Engel before, and I think that you could use eminent domain to buy the borough parking lot, where they're making it's a cash cow for the borough family. They got it under false pretenses. One of the trustees was a family lawyer, and if you bought that property, you're smiling on, but you could make 2 stories. It wouldn't be anywhere near as ugly as 5 stories, and you could build a parking thing, and you could alleviate the problem for hundreds and hundreds of people that live in the village of Ossining by buying that property.
Very good point.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, with pride, I'd like to call a question.
Second motion, call a question.
We have a, need a roll call on this,
Let's call, the
Call
vote,
question is
question
called.
is called.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't sent it out.
Yeah. Mr. Zarin,
Yeah.
Mr. Chu.
Can we take, before we go to public comment, can we take a 2-minute stretch?
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Stretch or whatever?